We noticed that because in her survey instrument, she actually was providing an incentive, a monetary incentive. Her survey instrument actually got essentially attacked by bots. These things happen all the time, but you cannot, get discouraged. You just have to, first assess what's happening, diagnose it, then let's think through solution, and then execute. If you're getting ready to collect the data for your dissertation or currently in the data collection process, you know that at this point, you may have experienced some delays with IRB, issues with gathering participants, or just challenges with implementing your research as you intentionally set forth in your dissertation proposal or prospectus, or whatever the name of it is at your current institution. But with that said, there is a way to prepare for all the roadblocks that might come, but sometimes we don't think about them until we're experiencing them. So on this episode, I'm going to talk about the roadblocks that you can expect or potentially encounter when you are engaging in the data collection process, and how to have plans and systems in place to circumvent these roadblocks when they happen. I want to say first, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of From AB to the PhD Show. I'm your host, Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of Done Dissertation. In that Done Dissertation, our goal is to help you, the doctoral student, demystify the dissertation process and write your dissertation in record time. Today's episode is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Coaching Program, which is a coaching community and support structure in place to help you, the doctoral student, write your dissertation quickly. So if you want to learn more about the program and schedule a complimentary consultation, you can highlight the QR code that is here on your screen, or you can go to www.velocitydissertation.com. Now, let's get into this episode about the roadblocks that you might experience during data collection. First things first, to set the stage and to set the context, I first want to talk about the roadblocks, the things that we have seen from our Velocity clients and for even my own doctoral students that are out in the field doing the work, and things that you should be thinking about now if you aren't collecting data, or things that you should be considering if you're in the midst of the data collection process. So the first things first is that depending on the type of work that you're doing, it may involve human subjects to some aspect, right? And so if you're in this boat, one of the first roadblocks that a lot of doctoral students face is around the IRB, the Institutional Review Board. It's a body of folks at an institution or a group of institutions that will review the protocols that you put forward to carry out your study. And essentially, if you're taking a research methods class, they may have talked about this a little bit around the ethics around research. And so you probably have learned about these issues generally with research, and how researchers historically have done some pretty cruel things to participants in studies, and conducted some studies that have, while informed, some of the things that we currently do in today's society, have from an ethical standpoint not always been at, the top of the line in terms of ethics or ethical considerations of the participants. So IRB was put in place as a mechanism for, universities who have faculty and students conducting research to serve as more of a gatekeeper and make sure that the research that you're proposing is sound and that it does no harm to the individuals or whatever it is that you're coming in contact with, and or you're not sharing any information that could be potentially damaging to the people or the participants in your study. And so if you're in this boat and you have to go through IRB, know that a lot of times this will delay your process. And a lot of times what we have found is that folks don't always follow the instructions with IRB. Like, one thing about IRB, and the trick that we always say, is write your methods chapter first, then apply for IRB, or put your application materials together, because the things that you write in your chapter, in your methods chapter, will be reflected in the IRB application. And so once you have it written in your chapter, you're literally like copying and pasting the answers over to your IRB application and just tweaking the language some, because their audience is not necessarily, they don't want to hear about everything regarding your methods. They just want to know, how are you ensuring the protection of any potential participants? But a lot of folks don't follow the instructions on the IRB, and the first thing that they do, they will kick it back to you. And you don't want those delays, because some universities, and this is another piece of the roadblock, some universities' IRB committees only meet once a month. And so you have to consider when they're meeting that, let's say, for instance, they are meeting, let's say the end of the semester now, this is May, let's say they're meeting, May 15th as an IRB committee. That means probably your document needed to be submitted before their meeting. So probably your deadline for them probably was like April the 28th or something like that. So you have to be mindful of these timelines, because let's say, for instance, you put everything together, but you didn't have it ready until April the 29th. Their deadline was the 28th. So the delay is already started, because you can't get into the May IRB committee meeting. You have to literally get into the June one because you missed the deadline. So like simple things like that with IRB can really mess you up. So it's like not following instructions around deadlines, not following instructions around the documents that they want, because a lot of times they want you to have your city certification. So that's the certification that you've gone through, like the responsible conduct and research training. Like all these minor things are pieces that you need to have before you apply for IRB. And there's nothing worse than having defended your proposal and then putting these things together. So one strategy I will give you now is that if you're writing, your dissertation proposal, once you finish your methods chapter, start filling out all the materials and put all the things together that you will need for IRB now, so that when you apply, it's a lot easier. So the second particular roadblock that we've seen for a lot of folks in experience is participant issues, and really regarding participant recruitment challenges. Because depending on the type of study you're doing, you really have to consider, do you have access to these participants, or can you get access to them fairly easily? It can be a challenge for folks. Like I just say, for instance, one of our clients was doing a study and initially focused on a certain group of people within one state. And because they were looking at a group of individual professionals who have, marginalized identities, there were really not that many within their state. I would say it would be less than 50 people could be in their study from their state based on their criteria. And what they did, they actually applied for IRB, got approved, and started to collect their data and realized they were running into so many roadblocks that people were not participating. So literally what they had to do is go back after a conversation with their chair and then amend their IRB to then broaden the scope of their study to professionals that were from this particular identity group within the United States. And then they were able to successfully collect their data and defend a dissertation. These things happen all the time. And sometimes we don't consider that when we're thinking about our dissertation projects. I know one of our students who just joined the Velocity program, we had this conversation because she was already kind of restricting her sample by the type of like a psychological disorder that they had to kind of be associated with. And there was another, identity on top of that. And it made it very difficult. I was like, well, let's keep this open and then we can still see what we find from the participant pool. So that's one. But then also when you think about participants, even when you're a student, maybe you're watching this and you're just still in coursework, you need to be like developing these relationships to get these data if you need that, have to get it from actual, human folks that you don't have contact with. Start building these networks, doing these things early so that when you're ready to collect your data, you actually have people that you could reach out to. And then I would just say when you're going through this process, all hands on deck, because, part of the common roadblock is that, it's the timing thing. Like you got IRB approved, but you're just delayed on getting the word out about your study. I promise you, if I got IRB approved today at, 10 a.m. when this video comes out, best believe 10:02, I'm sending those emails out rapid fire because I want to get this thing in motion. But if you're not thinking about that now, it can really delay you. And then lastly, around these roadblocks that we see, the third one is around technical issues. And so when I'm saying technical issues, I'm thinking more about things from like the survey instrument that you're using to the, data storage platform that you're using. There are glitches all the time. And so my recommendation is to test your tools beforehand. A lot of times, especially if you're doing something where you have a survey or a demographic questionnaire, like maybe you put out a call for participants, they click on, you have your flyer, they say, oh, I want to be involved in, they click on the link for your, to see if they're a candidate for your study. They fill out this demographic questionnaire, and then they have to schedule a consultation with you, like to have the actual interview or fill out the informed consent. You want to test each step of that process and you walk through it and then have a couple of your friends walk through it as if they were participants, because then they can point out where there were some delays in the process or some things that were a little bit wonky. And you want to do this now because, you have one good shot to go get your data. And when you go out and stuff is not working, you have lost potential participants that you can't get back. And I've seen this happen a lot of times when folks just did not have the process worked out well enough to move things along. So again, as we're thinking about these roadblocks, those are the main ones: IRB, participant recruitment, and then the technical issues. Now, if this is resonating with you so far, drop me a like, let me know. And also drop me a comment and something that's resonating with you just from this first part. And then also you do me a huge favor. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button. And if you're watching this on LinkedIn, Facebook, or somewhere else, please share it on your timeline with other folks and make sure that you follow us on all the platforms. Now, when we get into some of the other roadblocks around the when you're in data collection, another one I want you to consider is about then, once you identify what the roadblock is, we're going to think about proactive strategies to avoid these roadblocks. So the first step in order to avoid the roadblocks associated with the data collection process is to plan ahead. The more preparation you do upfront, the fewer roadblocks you will encounter. And what we tell our students to do is actually map out the whole data collection process And I've shared this on other episodes, but let me grab what I usually would do. I don't have a larger version, but get you sticky notes and write down each step of the data collection process and stick them on the wall, and then put them in linear order and see, are there any gaps in terms of what I have folks doing? And you want to walk people through systematically through, all right, they see the flyer. So one of the steps is I got to have a flyer created. All right, the flyer has a QR code. I need to get a QR code created. Once those things are done, I need to look at the page where it sends them to. So maybe it's a Google form, or whatever type of format you're using, or Qualtrics survey instrument, whatever you're using. All right, they fill out these questions. What happens when they fill out the questions? Oh, I need to send them to a Calendly scheduler or whatever you're using. Oh, I need to set up the scheduler. So like all these things start to matter. So line them up, write them on your post-it note, and then by the time that you write your thing, you just do it. Just write them and stick them on your wall, and then line them up in order so that when you're doing these things, it becomes a lot easier. But I promise you, if you don't do it, it'll be a challenge. And so that's like things around planning ahead. Also, another piece is that, in order to avoid some of these roadblocks, just have consistent communication and clear communication with your participants, with the IRB committee, if they have revisions for you, and with your, dissertation committee. Because sometimes things are not messed up because of your own wrongdoing, but maybe they're just a lost, communication got kind of mixed up and people didn't know what to do. This is why, like, sometimes people have these schedulers and things. I see it happen a lot. Like when I was doing my dissertation, those scheduler tools were like relatively new and they weren't that good, and they cost a lot. So I didn't use them, but I had to follow up with people to make sure that they got on, to meet me, to collect the data. Like all these things start to happen. And so you just want to be mindful of that now. With that said, so having this clear communication, and with that, you also want to, in addition to clear communication, have a backup plan. Look, there's nothing worse than collecting data and you can't use it. I've seen this happen. We have one of a client who was running an experiment in a school district. So one, they experienced almost a year delay with IRB because of the school district. And then when they went to collect the data, they noticed in the survey that there wasn't a marker or something that they can use to designate that the same student who completed the pre-survey also would complete the post intervention survey. So they had no way to link them. That was an inherent kind of impact to the design of the study, which was more of an intervention and experiment. So they had to figure out a way to like circumvent that. These are things that as a researcher are terrifying to have. So you just need to have a plan B of what you can do, saying that if I don't collect this data in the right way, what other analyses can I do just in case? Like in this case, if you have a pre and post test survey, you might just, again, eliminate the pre-test and just do post-test only. It's a slightly weaker design, but hey, it still gets the job done enough to get you out of your dissertation, right? So these are the things that you have to consider, and you want to create these plans now before you need them. It's nothing worse than if you're in this boat, and let me know in the comments if you experienced this, where you're trying to collect data and realize that something is drastically wrong about how you're approaching your study. Now, once you have, thought through the backup plan, had clear communication, and kind of did some of these in planning ahead and some of these proactive strategies, now what we're going to have to do is that, as you are navigating the dissertation, is that you're going to have to stay on track when these roadblocks happen. First things first, when a roadblock happens while you're collecting data and something goes wrong, do not panic. The time to just stop, see what's happening, and then first diagnose what the issue is. Because sometimes you may have the issue completely wrong, and it might be a quick solution, a quick fix. Something that I would say is interesting that happens a lot is that when you first launch a survey instrument, particularly when you're using Google Forms. I don't know, something about Google Forms, for some reason, we've gone through all those settings and hit share. We did share with anyone with the link. And then somehow when we send the link out, the first thing you get is a comment or email or DM back to you saying, hey, the link says it's restricted. I can't access. I hate it. It happens all the time. I don't know how it happens with these Google Forms, but it happens a lot, right? So if that's the case for you, don't panic. First, we have to diagnose, the issue is something's going on with my link. It's restricted. All right, let me double check the link. And then what you do, here's a hack for when you're using Google Forms to collect data, is that once you have, selected the link where it says anyone with the link can, complete the form, I want you to go into, if you're using like Google Chrome, or you can just on any of your browsers, right? Google Chrome, or if you're using Safari or the Mac, whatever browser that you're using, I want you to go in on Google Chrome. It's called, you go to File and then go New Incognito Window. And so what that does, it almost treats that particular window like you have never been on that computer before. It wipes out all the cache, cookies, all those things. And then you could paste the link into that browser, try it from there and see what happens. That'll give you a realistic view of what's going on for a potential participant. I do that for any survey thing that I've created, especially when I'm concerned about if it's restricted or not. I use that incognito window. I think in Safari it's called like a private browser window. I forget the names, but you'll find it. And usually it's like in file and then go and you'll find new, and it'll be like a private browser window or incognito. You'll find it. Make sure that you do that. Again, we're able to diagnose, and then we're able to then create a solution. But at the end of the day, do not panic and just be flexible. Again, these things happen and things don't go as planned. For my student who didn't have a way necessarily to link the pre and post, they had to get creative. They actually worked with the person whose group that they were using to run the experiment and talk to them about what other ways could we use based on what I collected in order to identify whose student was what. And we realized that possibly the computer that they use could be a route. There's so many other ways to consider based on just thinking through the process. But a lot of times you can will panic and it will just impact you. And this is especially true even at the IRB stage, right? You put IRB in and they kick it back to you. One of my own students, experienced this, and we had kickbacks 2 times for like minor things that they want us to fix. We recognize, all right, what are the things? Are they inherently changing the study? No. Can we do these quickly? Yes. Let's quickly turn them around. These things happen all the time. And just to give one last example, in the importance of, this is when you leverage your dissertation committee, your chair in particular, or, if you're, part of our community, ask us a question, or, reach out or become part of our Velocity program. We can help walk you through. These are things that we walk our clients through. One of my doctoral students, my own students, so shout out to Dr. Fleming, and as she recalled, when she was doing her dissertation, she launched a survey instrument, and we noticed that, the first couple of weeks got like 100, 200 responses, and then all of a sudden it went from like 200 to 5,000 responses. And what we noticed is that because in her survey instrument, she actually was providing an incentive, a monetary incentive, her survey instrument actually got essentially attacked by bots. And so there were like over 4,000 bots that had infiltrated her survey, and essentially were trying to get this payment for the being a part of the survey. And so she had to go through and like scrub her data collection tool across all those things and kind of figure out who's the bot, who's real, and then remove them. One of the limitations, we may have removed a legitimate person, but we had to kind of look across in terms of the responses and things like that to get an idea of who might be a bot. So again, these things happen all the time, but you cannot, get discouraged. You just have to, first assess what's happening, diagnose it, then let's think through solution, and then execute. That's how we move this thing forward. Again, I've seen so many other types of data collection just roadblocks that people experience, and it's no fault of their own. I've had a student before who's gotten to somewhat of almost a legal issue in terms of someone on their behalf, so they didn't do it. They sent their link out to somebody to solicit participants for their study. That person sent it out via their listserv and didn't have permission of the organization to submit that link via the listserv. It wasn't my student's fault. It was actually the person's fault who did it. But it became a whole thing for a second. So these things happen quite often. And so just know that first we diagnose, we figure out what are our solutions, and we have, again, a plan A, B, C, and then we execute from there. Again, I wanted to give you all some, again, tactical. This episode is very tactical because a lot of y'all will be collecting data, and sometimes we don't talk about the messiness of the data collection process and what you might have to do in order to get the data that you need to, finish your dissertation. So if this has been helpful for you, please let me know in the comments what does resonate with you. And if you are someone who has said at this point, I need some help, Dr. Goins, I want to get the support that I need to finish my dissertation quickly, and I want that coaching and help. So if I do encounter data collection issues, or if I'm already in the data collection process, you need someone to help you think through what to do if you need to pivot, I would invite you to schedule a complimentary consultation to learn more about the Velocity program. And so you can scan the QR code that is here on your screen, or you can go to www.velocitydissertation.com to learn more about our program and to apply to schedule that consultation. You will chat with Renee to learn more about how we can help you. And yeah, we're looking forward to really getting students like you to the finish line. And with that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching today's episode. If you have found value out of this, please hit the subscribe button and notification bell if you're watching this on our YouTube channel. We're looking to grow this to 2,000 subscribers. Right now, we hit the 1,000 mark. We're like about 1,300 or so. First, I want to say thank you all so much for allowing us to get over 1,000. Now, our goal is to hit to 2,000. So if you hit the subscribe button and share this out with some colleagues that you know that would get value out of this. And if you're watching this on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, wherever else you're watching this episode or this content, make sure you hit the follow button and share this out with folks in on your feed or in your timelines. Again, it will mean the world to us to get this more of this information out. But again, if you need help, don't do this thing alone. We got you covered in the Velocity program. All you got to do is tap in with us and schedule a consultation. You can click the link in the description as well, and we will have you all set. But with that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching this episode of From ABD to PhD Show. I'm your host, Dr. Ramon Goings, and founder of Done Dissertation. And until next time, I wish you a done dissertation. Take care and have a great day.